Krishna, Jai Advaita Gadadhar Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Mukund Lila, Yatrapātamaham Vande Shri 4.6 today. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanamishvaropi san prakritim swamabhisthaya sambhavami sambhavami atmamayaya. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all the living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. The Lord has spoken about the peculiarity of his birth. Although he may appear like an ordinary person, he remembers everything of his many, many past births. Whereas a common man cannot remember what he has done even a few hours before. If someone asked what he did exactly at the same time one day earlier, it would be very difficult for a common man to answer immediately. He would surely have to dredge his memory to recall what he was doing exactly at the same time one day before. And yet, men often dare claim to be God or Krishna. One should not be misled by such meaningless claims. Then again, the Lord explains his prakriti or his form. Prakriti means nature as well as Swarupa or one's own form. The Lord says that he appears in his own body. He does not change his body as a common living entity changes from one body to another. The conditioned soul may have one kind of body in the present birth, but he has a different body in the next birth. In the material world, the living entity has no fixed body, but transmigrates from one body to another. The Lord, however, does not do so. Whenever he appears, he does so in the same original body by his internal potency. In other words, Krishna appears in the material world in his original eternal form, with two hands holding a flute. He appears exactly in his eternal body, uncontaminated by this material world. Although he appears in the same transcendental body and is the Lord of the universe, it still appears that he takes birth like an ordinary living entity. And although his body does not deteriorate like a material body, it still appears that Lord Krishna grows from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth. But astonishingly enough, he never ages beyond youth. At the time of the battle of Kurukshetra, he had many grandchildren at home, or in other words, he had sufficiently aged by material calculations. Still, he looked just like a young man, 20 or 25 years old. We never see a picture of Krishna in old age because he never grows old like us, although he is the oldest person in the whole creation, past, present, and future. Neither his body nor his intelligence ever deteriorates or changes. Therefore, it is clear that in spite of his being in the material world, he is the same unborn eternal form of bliss and knowledge, changeless in his transcendental body and intelligence. Factually, his appearance and disappearance is like the sun's rising, moving before us, and then disappearing from our eyesight. When the sun is out of sight, we think that the sun is set, and when the sun is before our eyes, we think that the sun is on the horizon. Actually, the sun is always in its fixed position, but owing to our defective, insufficient senses, we calculate the appearance and disappearance of the sun in the sky. And because Lord Krishna's appearance and disappearance are completely different from that of any ordinary common living entity, it is evident that he is eternal, blissful knowledge by his internal potency, and he is never contaminated by material nature. The Vedas also confirm that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unborn, yet he still appears to take his birth in multi manifestations. The Vedic supplementary literatures also confirm that even though the Lord appears to be taking his birth, he is still without change of body. In the Bhagavatam, he appears before his mother as Narayan with four hands and the decorations of the six kinds of opulence, full opulence. His appearance in his original eternal form is his causeless mercy bestowed upon the living entities so that they can concentrate on the Supreme Lord as he is, and not on mental concoctions or imaginations, which is the which the impersonalist wrongly thinks the Lord's forms to be. The word Maya or Atma Maya refers to the Lord's causeless mercy, according to the Vishwakosha dictionary. The Lord is conscious of all his previous appearances and disappearances, but a common living entity forgets everything about his past body as soon as he gets another one. He is the Lord of all the living entities because he performs wonderful and superhuman activities while he is on this earth. Therefore, the Lord is always the same absolute truth and is without differentiation between his form and self or between his quality and body. A question may now be raised as to why the Lord appears and disappears in this way. This is going to be explained in the next part. Although I am unborn in my transcendental body, and although I am the Lord of all the living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form.
आपका आ जाएगा मैंने म्यूट कर दिया.
The Lord appears in the Lord appears as an ordinary human being so that we can relate to him, we can connect to him. And the Lord appears in his original transcendental form so that we can get uplifted. The material platform is tottering. Material platform is destructible. But the point to note is that the material platform is not meaningless. Srila Prahlad Maharaj explains in his teachings to his demoniac classmates that this human form of life is temporary. But Prahlad Maharaj explains although it is temporary, it is arthadam. Although it is temporary, it is meaningful. It is meaningful. Because while in this temporary manifestation, one can awaken one's eternal disposition. So therefore, life should always be geared towards meaning. Life should always be geared towards awakening, actually. So the meaning comes out when we are always tuned in or working hard towards awakening of our consciousness. That which is temporary will anyways pass. But What did we do in that phase will decide whether we are getting more and more entangled or whether we got awake. So when suffering takes place, then there is misery, then there is disturbance, the consciousness is disturbed. The point to note is that suffering will pass away. Suffering is not an eternal phenomenon. But while that phase is going on, if we take shelter of Krishna, we get awakened. Suffering will anyways go away. Same is true for positive titillations also. The titillation will go away. After some time, there will be nothing, there will be no quotient of titillation remaining. It will go away, it will vanish completely. But while the titillation is there is a temporary happiness phase in one's life. If one takes shelter of Krishna, that will remain with us. That will remain. That's why human life is meaningful. That's why this material world is meaningful. It's just like, say for example, uh, but ultimately what marks have been inscribed in class 10th, those marks still remain with the person, is it not? Whether that chapter was interesting chapter, bogus chapter, whether the book was, the teacher was fine or not, whether the school was a good school, not a good school. Afterwards, nothing much matters. If one has, what grades one has got awarded by the council and what certificate one has got by the All India Council stamp, that's what remains. If the grade is 90, 92, 95, that's what remains. Nothing else matters. And the person, now whether one did self-study or his parents taught him or he went to tuition, nothing matters. How much he remembers of that, nothing matters. Same thing holds true for a BTech degree also. Whatever CGPA has got inscribed is done. Now whether you remember or don't remember, any subject, how does it matter? It's done and gone. In the same way, actually, we need to understand that uh, the material world, the flavoring, material world gives the flavoring. But the syllabus is spiritual awakening. That is the point. The syllabus is spiritual awakening. That's the idea, actually. The material world gives the flavoring. So we need to understand that the titillations of this material world, the waxing and waning, the crest and troughs of this material world is just flavoring and nothing else, actually. That is the point which needs to be understood. Point which a sadhaka has to accept. It's just the flavoring. And therefore, one should not be intoxicated by the flavoring. One should understand it's just not. Just like nowadays, universities are transforming themselves into a virtual university model. There is no physical meeting, but everyone is studying. University of Melbourne is going to conduct exams also virtually. So they are 2 3 steps more far, no, ahead of IIT. So University of Melbourne, they have got a full protocol. Everyone, they can give exams also, all virtual, everything. This semester virtual, everything is done. Next semester also they are thinking full-fledged 100% A to Z virtual university. So you see the point. The point is that education is the important thing. Whether you're sitting in a physical classroom or not, a virtual classroom, that doesn't matter much.
Yeah.
Teaching is the important thing, is it not? Whether you're writing on paper, you're typing on in the computer, doesn't matter much. The content is what is important. So we have to understand the spiritual is the content, the material is the flavoring. So on the external plane, the happiness and distress which come, they are just like flavoring agents. A suffering phase or a mentally torturous phase or a restless phase may be like ah maybe like one is sitting in the midst of the heat of the summer, say for example 45-degree temperature, and the fan is 18th century smoke, but it has like that, and the bench is creaking. So the point is that it may, so it poses an irritable flavor. We have to understand it doesn't create a deadlock, it just poses an irritable flavor like that. So the point is that now the interesting point to note is that whether it is a good flavor or it is a bad flavor, whether it's a good flavor or bad flavor, both intoxicate or both have the potential to intoxicate and stop the living entity from the syllabus. So both have the no, potentiality. Just like in a classroom wherein you are sweating and the fan is creaking and the bench is creaking, you know, and the ceiling is leaking. So in such a classroom, it will be difficult to focus. Difficult to focus. A person will think that I don't want to study here. I don't want to grasp anything here, like that. So the bad flavoring has a potentiality to block, but good flavoring also does the same. Suppose a classroom is very spick and span. It is such a sleek and spick and span classroom, and there is centralized AC, and the benches are very nice, cozy. Cushion is there, everything. Seat very nice. You're sitting. So what's going to happen? What is going to happen? There is all probability that the person will very peacefully go to sleep. Is it not? Right? The person may go to sleep peacefully. Such a nice and cozy atmosphere. Anybody studies in this atmosphere? Is there anybody? Person may think like that. Is it not? So therefore, the good flavor has also caused blockage, and the bad flavor has also caused blockage. Hmm? So therefore, the point is that don't worry about setting. Okay, right? No, don't worry about the setting. So therefore, the solution is that one has to take his consciousness off the setting, and one has to focus his consciousness on the goal. So the consciousness has to be focused on awakening. If life is happy, person is intoxicated, doesn't get the fervor for Krishna consciousness. If life is irritable and restless, person's zeal or enthusiasm is down, and therefore there is no positive vigor for spiritual life. The point is when positive vigor is going to. So the simple answer is positive vigor does not come on its own. The fervor for Krishna consciousness does not come on its own. No situation will ignite the fervor for Krishna consciousness. The fervor for Krishna consciousness has to be drilled into, has to be, drilled out of our existence. That is the point. Therefore, sadhana bhakti means stretch. The fervor for Krishna consciousness has to be drilled out of our existence. That is the important point we have to note actually. That is why the Bhakti Shastras and the Acharyas recommend that one should never procrastinate any undertaking of spiritual life, thinking that, okay, let the situations become peaceful, let the situations become favorable. The Acharyas and Bhakti
Hello,
Shastras explain that you continue doing your duty,
hello,
you continue doing your duty, and sometimes you will experience a favorable ambience and sometimes you will experience an unfavorable experience. Nevertheless, continue doing your duty. So this is the point which we need to understand, that the material factors uh, will wax and wane, but the one point factor is which one should focus on is spiritual awakening. Mind it, the intoxication of this material world mind it, the intoxication of this material world is very intense. You see, the point is that because material world always offers different kind of flavoring, we will see each and every flavor is quite intoxicating because it's a new flavor. Is it not? It's a new flavor, but it is very intoxicating. One has to beware himself. One has to beware himself. One has to uh, be very cautious. Why? Because you see, the Lord is explaining here. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, saying that the living entity, he changes bodies, and when he changes bodies, he forgets everything actually. So the forgetfulness is not just limited to the denomination of or to the precision of the change of body. The body is not the atomic unit, but it is to the denomination of every new flavoring, like that. So now the point is that as soon as the living entity sees another flavor of illusion, the living entity, hooking onto that, forgets all the discrepancies and the hardships which he underwent through in the previous flavoring. Now he's seeing a new flavor, like that. So he's intoxicated. This is called as intoxication. Actually, this is called as intoxication. As soon as the new uh, flavoring is visible, the living entity forgets everything, all the hardships, all the frustrations and miseries of his previous flavor, and therefore he remains eternally bound. We can see that actually. We can see that happening. Therefore, actually, this whole business of something new, something new, something new is a completely bogus business. Nothing new. All new means new illusion. Again, intoxication. At least when the illusion is old, we are a little bit fried out with that illusion. If we can understand the discrepancies. But when the illusion is new, then you don't know anything about it. So we have to understand material world. Let us not run after this new. Like you see, people are so intoxicated. Like say for example, if you look at this, you know, say for example, uh, you know, this say for example this movie industry. Any new movie is going to come. So many people are excited about it. People talk for months and months. This movie will be hitting, you know, what do you call it as? Which office it is? Box office. Yeah, box office. It boxes on our consciousness actually. Yeah. So it's called as box office. The movie actually gives a box actually, and persons, teeth are broken, like that. He gets intoxicated. He gets, more entangled, like that. Box office actually. They say, okay, this movie. People do predictions. People are, talking about the months and months. They talk actually. So much if they talk about Krishna, the material world will cease to exist actually. You know? Yeah, it will be so nice. But they are so much. Every new movie, and then one interfaces the movie. The theme is the same. The same is the same. It's no, it's lust, it's violence. It's going to be extreme emotional, no, extreme emotional outburst, and it shows some extreme situations actually, which can completely churn a person and pulverize him emotionally. That's what it is all about. The person goes through that, and then he's excited about the next movie waiting. Actually. The next movie waiting, next movie, like that. Simply illusion, actually. Simply mongering, lingering in illusions. Therefore, the Lord comes in a spiritual form. Therefore, the Lord does not present something newer and newer and newer and newer. Shastras are eternal. Krishna's form, Krishna's personality, Krishna's message is eternal, is fixed. And the Lord is telling, don't run after this newness syndrome. Is it not? The newness is a very intoxicating syndrome, is it not? Like that. Don't run after this newness syndrome, actually. Look at the intoxication in newness, is it not? People keep running after hairstyles. What is the style in a hair, Whether you have hair or not hair, how does it, how does it much matter, is it not? People run after hairstyles, like that. What to say of people? Our Bhaktivedanta National School children, they have got hold of this machine and they are making new hairstyles. Somebody is doing half cut themselves only. So foolish, mode of ignorance, like that. So you see, and some candidates every week actually. So so we have to stop that. But there's so much intoxicated every now and then. They don't have time for study, but there is time for doing a hairstyle, some half cut, some this, some that, some complete cut, some complete shape, this, that, no. Now, how does it matter? Is it not? Now, what is there on top of the head doesn't matter much. What is there inside the head matters more, actually. So that's the whole point, actually. That what is there inside the head is what is most important. Is it? Similarly, people go after fashions. You know, this cut, that cut, that cut. So people keep going after clothing, fashions, all miserable newness syndrome, actually. You know, again the same thing. What is there outside doesn't matter. You put anything, is it not? Put anything, whatever is easily, cheaply available. That's it. Like that. What is there inside is what matters. What is the state of one's heart? What is one's character? That is what matters. So this newness is a bogus phenomenon, actually. And therefore, one should never be obsessed about this newness syndrome. It's new, new, new. In this way, Maya is intoxicating, actually. It's new, 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 like that. So therefore, we have to fix our consciousness to the unchanging. We have to fix our consciousness to the unchanging, actually. That whether the GDP is going high, low, the Sensex is going high or low, or gets a blow, it doesn't matter. What matters is, are we awakened to the eternal reality? And is that eternality being reflected in our dealings, in our relationships, in our interface with the world? We connect to eternality and we present this eternal connection to one and all. That is the idea, actually. And it is this very awakening which the Lord comes to create, actually. That's why the Lord appears again and again. It is this very mercy which the Lord comes to, give, actually. So the next three verses, the Lord is going to explain why He comes. Krishna's great mercy that the Lord penetrates in every material setting and illuminate our hearts. That is Lord's great mercy, actually. That's Krishna's great mercy in our lives. He penetrates in every different material setting and illuminate our hearts. Like say, for example, if we reflect upon the time before we came to IIT, the pre-JE, the JE phase and the pre-JEE joint entrance examination phase, what all plans and desires a person had, what all plans and desires we had, what all we wanted to do after getting seat in IIT, or the initial 1 or 2 weeks in IIT itself, what all plans and desires a person gets. How far is Krishna consciousness from any of those plans? So you see, the point is that in our own lives we can see that no, our whole universe of what all ideas and plans we had, Krishna consciousness is nowhere actually into the horizon. But how Krishna has illuminated our hearts. So Krishna has a plan. Krishna has a plan. Even though the living entity is running full-fledged into intoxication, the Lord gives opportunities, is it not? So Krishna has a plan. In this way, Krishna penetrates material settings. In this way, Krishna illuminates our heart. In the same way, we should understand that the same way how the Lord has saved us by injecting that desire, by awakening that desire for Krishna consciousness in our hearts. In the same way, the Lord will actually handhold us and take us all through the journey of this material. Why does one have to be despondent at any given point? Why does one has to succumb to a shallow level of practice? Shallow level of practice. But the same way the Lord has helped us all through, the same way Krishna is going to help us further also. So that is guarantee. But materially what will happen is not guaranteed. Therefore, the whole process of yoga is to take our focus. The whole process of yoga is to take our focus out from the material manifestations and to fix our focus on the spiritual reality of life. That is the idea. And therefore we see Krishna appeals to different people in different ways. Krishna appeals to different people in different ways. We see there are some devotees who are philosophical and they are able to go on in Krishna consciousness. There are others who are not that philosophical, but still they are able to go on in Krishna consciousness. Krishna manifests in different ways to different devotees, is it not? Krishna manifests in different ways to different devotees. Krishna can manifest, as philosophical conviction. Krishna can manifest as, a cultural attraction. Krishna can manifest as emotional fulfillment. The Lord can manifest to